This video is going to be going over how to solve equations with fractions. In another video, I did explain that we will be seeing fractions for the duration of the school year and that you need to be comfortable with them. And I even went as far to say that fractions were our friends. Now we are still doing the same exact process as before. Here are your steps. You need to clean by going down PEMDAS. In step 2, you need to solve by going opposite of PEMDAS. Now, don't forget that when we clean, we should have 2 or less terms on each side. All right, today we're going to add some steps on how to deal with our fractions. We are going to get rid of the denominator. And I'm going to explain that in the first problem, which is a basic one where we are not going to have to clean, we just need to solve. So for instance, if I gave you the problem -2 plus 1/3 x equals 9. Now, in order to solve this problem or problems that have fractions, you need to recall a lot of information from 6th grade math, and that's adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions, which some of you guys are good at, but some of you guys are just not friends with fractions yet. You're a little bit afraid of them. So what makes this problem hard is not the whole fraction, because if I had a 1x, this would be super easy. 1x, or whole integers, are very easy to get rid of. I would just get rid of a times whatever is attached to my x by dividing it. What makes this difficult is the bottom of my fraction. Now, the bottom of my fraction is considered a divide 3. So in order to get rid of the bottom of the fraction and make my life more easy so that I don't have to deal with fractions throughout the whole problem and the computations that come with it, is just to get rid of the divide 3. The opposite of a divide 3 is a times 3. However, because this is an equation, I need to do everything in the line. So not only do I need to times the fraction by the denominator, in order to get rid of it, you're going to multiply everything in the problem. So this becomes a -6. The top of the fraction and the bottom of the fraction cancel because they're opposites. A times 3 is the opposite of a divide 3. And do not change the top of your fraction. Do not change the top of your fraction when the bottom cancels. This one, 9 times 3, is a 27. So I'm just going to put what I said in a little box because you're going to hear me say that over again. Top of fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. All right, that's very important. The top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. Now that I got rid of the fraction, look at how easy this problem is. It's just a 2-step equation, which we did a couple videos ago. So I'm going to get rid of my good friend first, my best friend second. Remember, good friend is always add, subtract. You always get rid of your add, subtract first when you're solving. And your best friend is going to be whatever your multiply, divide is. So I can see how close this one is. That's my best friend. We're really close. I have to get rid of my plus minus first. The opposite of a -6 is a +6. Same signs. I'm going to add and keep to get a 33. Now, if you want, you could divide by 1, but we should know that 1x is the same thing as x. If you divide by 1, you're going to get the same exact answer. Now, if I plug this into the problem, which I will do for this one, you're going to see that this actually is going to work. So I have a -2 plus 1/3 x, which I just found was 33. I'm hoping that it equals 9. That's my goal, to make this left side equal to the right side. So let's do this. Top times top, bottom times bottom. That's a recall box, is 11. 11 and -2, same signs, add and keep. They're different signs, so I'm subtracting, taking the sign of the higher. Yep, 9 equals 9. So we're gonna do a couple more of these fraction ones just so that you get used to the step of getting rid of the fraction. Now, if you want to do it a different way and add, subtract, multiply, and divide by your fractions, you're gonna get the same problem or the same solution as us, but it's just gonna take you a little longer. It's not a big deal. So let's say I have 5x minus 2 sevenths equals 11. All right. Now, this is as clean as it can possibly be because I have 2 or less. I have 1, 2 terms on the left-hand side, but I see this obnoxious fraction here, and I really don't want to add, subtract it, and get common denominators. Remember, when you have to add, subtract fractions, you need common denominators, and that's where we start getting a little iffy with our math. So what I'm going to do is, the 2 is fine. I'd be happy if that just said 5x minus 2. That's a problem I can deal with. But what is making it mess up is this divide 7. So I'm going to get rid of this divide 7 to get rid of my fraction. The opposite of a divide 7 is a times 7. But I have to multiply everything, all items in my line, times 7, times 7. This becomes 35 x's. This becomes 77. The top of my fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. If you wanted to do a recall box for that, it would be super easy. I'm going to show you why the top of your fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. When I do this, it would be top times top, bottom times bottom, and then you would reduce, which means it's going to give you the top of your fraction anyway. Some of you guys think of this as cross simplifying, give you a 1 and a 1, which just gives you the top of your fraction. Now, this is a 2-step equation, super easy to do. I have my best friend times 35. I have my good friend minus 2. So I'm going to get rid of my plus minus first. Good friends go first. Opposite of a minus 2 is a plus 2. I get a 79. I'm going to get rid of a times 35. The opposite of a times 35 is a divide 35. Divide 35. I get this obnoxious answer. Now, I didn't say that when we got rid of the fractions, we wouldn't have fractions in our problem. I'm just saying if we get rid of our fractions at the beginning, we don't have to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and do all that crazy computation work in the problem. I can still get a fraction as my solution. Feel free to plug this into your calculator, get a decimal equivalent, see if you plug it in, times by 5. Subtract 2 sevenths, should give you something approximate to 11. Now, because we're using decimals, you might get like a 10.99 equals 11, because they're not going to be exact depending on how much you round, or if you're rounding to the hundredths, the tenths place, everyone does things differently. All right, let's do another one that level, and then we're gonna level up. All right, so let's take a look at this. I'm noticing that there are too many terms on the left-hand side, so let's go ahead and clean them together. There's some friends here that can be put together, and they're on the same side, so don't do opposite operations. These are different signs. Subtract, take the sign of the higher. So you only do opposite operations when you're trying to go to the opposite side of this line. Now I have 2 or less things, we're good. 2 or less things, we're good. But I have a fraction, and I don't want that fraction there because fractions just make math a little bit more complicated. So the top of the fraction is good. I'm fine with a 4x. There's nothing wrong with that. What makes it annoying is that divide by 5. So we're going to get rid of a divide 5 by timesing everything in the line. I like putting these in like little circles or boxes so I don't forget them. Top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. Top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. You're more than welcome to do a recall box for that. It's just going to give you a 4. It's just gonna take you a little bit longer. All right. So now I have a best friend and a good friend. Always get rid of your plus minus first. The thing that's furthest away from your variable, the opposite of a plus 10, is a minus 10. I get a 0. 0 is a number. This doesn't mean no solutions or a weird answer. I still need to get rid of a times 4. The opposite of a times 4 is a divide 4. Your answer is 0. All right. Now, one of the videos we talked about special solutions. 0 is not a special solution because remember, for those special solutions, your variable has to disappear, and my variable didn't disappear. I still have an x here. All right, so let's use this fraction in the distributive property, which we have done previously in solving multi-step equations. But you're going to notice at this point, I'm not going to have all of my items cancel. So I'm going to give you something nice like a 4x, but then I'm going to pair it with something that's not nice. All right, so let's clean. I have to clean this side up by using the distributive property, half of 4. This comes out to be a nice number. I like that. Half of 9, however, no not. This is not nice. Top times top, 9. Bottom times bottom, 2. I'm stuck with this fraction. Obviously, don't distribute to the 8. I'm stuck with this fraction in the problem, which if I did this and I tried to move it over, I'm going to have to use common denominators. It's going to get a little crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of this divide 2 by doing the opposite of a divide 2. The opposite of a divide 2 is times 2, the whole line, times 2, the whole line, times 2, the whole line. So this becomes a 4x. The top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. So you can do a recall box. You're going to get the same answer as me. It's just going to take you a little longer. Okay? Now this is just a two-step equation. I have a best friend times 4. I have a good friend minus 9. Let's get rid of our good friend first. Always get rid of your plus minus first. Opposite of a minus 9 is a plus 9. Feel free to use a calculator. I'm going to get rid of a times 4. The opposite of a times 4 is a divide 4. And I get this obnoxious fraction at the end, which is fine. You're allowed to have fractions as your answers. I just saved you time by getting rid of it because it would have taken 2-3 times longer to be able to multiply by the reciprocal, common denominators, all that craziness. That's why we're getting rid of our fractions. All right. Let's do another one like that, and I have one other level I want to go over. All right, this left side's good to go. This right side I have to distribute. So top times top, you might want to recall for this. Top times top is a 4. Bottom times bottom is a 3. 4/3 does not clean up, so it's just 4/3 x. Recall box. Let's do another recall box for our second distributing. Top times top is 18. Bottom times bottom is 3. 18 over 3, that cleans out to be a nice 6. And you're more than welcome to cross simplify when you do that. It's just a little bit confusing when you have some other items in the way. So I have 2 or less items, so I'm done cleaning. But before I solve, I want to get rid of this fraction, okay? That is going to make this math a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to get rid of a divide 3. The opposite of a divide 3 is a times 3 everywhere. Top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. If you want to do a recall box like this on the side and then reduce, you're going to get a 4. This becomes a 18. What does this become? A 42. All right, I have a best friend times 4. I have a good friend plus 18. Let's get rid of our good friend. The opposite of a plus 18 is a minus 18. Here I have, 22, 24. Ooh, I like this. Let's check my math really quick because I'm not using a calculator. 24, 34, 36, 30. Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to get rid of a times 4 by dividing 4. And this comes out to be a nice number. Yay! I like that. Doesn't happen all the time because the world's not perfect, but this time it worked out for us. All right, so if I plugged in 6 here, times it by 2, I would get a 12. 12 plus 9 would be a 21. A 21 times 2 is a 42 divided by 3 is a 14. It works. And that check, which I did all in my head, did not take long. You're more than welcome to use a calculator in order to do your check. You should always do your checking step, especially when you're doing an assessment where your items incorrect are going to cost you points. All right, so last level that I wanted to talk about is when I have two fractions. All right, or more, 2 or more. Now I'm still going to want to get rid of the bottom of my fraction, and pick one of them. I like to go in order. So if I have 2 fractions, I usually tend to get rid of the first fraction. So this is a divide 3. The opposite of a divide 3 is a times 3. And I'm going to do that again all the way across my problem. All items. The top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. So a times 3 and a divide 3 cancel each other out. Top of my fraction doesn't change. Check this out. A times 3 and a divide 3 cancel out. If they cancel, the top of my fraction does not change. All right. Then it becomes a 2-step equation. The opposite of a plus 2 is a minus 2. And I don't need to divide by 1 because 1x is the same thing as x. So when the denominators are the same, you're going to be getting rid of the fractions at the same time because their opposites will cancel out both fractions. Now I'm going to show you one where the denominators are not the same, and don't stress out because our process is going to be the same. So if I have 1/3 and let's say 2/5, or even a 1/5, it doesn't really matter, equals 10. Like I said, I need to get rid of both denominators. I'm just going to go in order first, okay? And there is a different way to do this where you can get rid of them both at the same time. I'm not going to teach you that way, but if you know that way, go for it. I'm going to get rid of a divide 3. The first fraction I want to get rid of, divide 3. I'm still going to do everything in the line. The top of the fraction does not change if the bottom or when the bottom cancels. Now here, you got to ask yourself, does a times 3 cancel out with a divide 5? And the answer is no. Times 3 and a divide 5 are not opposites, so they're not going to cancel each other out. So what you're going to do is top times top, and feel free to do a little recall. I'll do it here. 2/5 times 3. You can make any number of fraction by putting it over 1. You get top times top, 10. Bottom times bottom, 5. That is not correct. Should be 6/5. I don't know why my brain said 10. Now, if you notice, you're going to ask yourself, well, that didn't get rid of both fractions. I know that. So let's get rid of the second one now. We're just doing 2 separate steps. To get rid of a divide 5, I'm going to times by 5. And I'm going to times everything in the line. I get a 5x. Top of the fraction does not change when the bottom cancels. That's a 6. And here I get 250. So if I did not get rid of those fractions, here I have a 2-step equation, very easy to solve. If I didn't get rid of those fractions, I would have to subtract a 2/5, get common denominators, then do the work for that sum, or difference I should say, and then I would have to multiply by the reciprocal here. The opposite of a times 1/3 is not a divide 1/3, because remember, you're not allowed to divide fractions. You have to multiply by the reciprocal. So there's a lot of rules and a lot of steps that I would have to recall, which you're more than welcome to do if you remember all that stuff in order to do that. So when I subtract my 6, that's my good friend, I get a 244. When I divide by 5, I get something that I cannot clean up. Do not change these into decimals or fractions, or sorry, they're already fractions, decimals or mixed numbers when giving the answer. You're more than welcome to change it to a decimal equivalent to check your work. You're gonna get something that is almost equivalent to a 10, so you might get like a 9.99 or a 10.01, something that is extremely close. So that is solving equations with fractions. Don't forget to get rid of the denominator, and the top of your fraction does not change if or when the bottom cancels. Always getting rid of your good friends before you get rid of your best friends.